Hi, welcome to CodeRage 9. My name is Marco Cantu, and I'm a product manager of RAD Studio at Embarcadero Technologies. This session is the Delphi Keynote. It's going to offer an overview of where the product is and where it is going, which are the directions of the technologies we are working onto. This is my contact information, my email, Twitter account for chatting over this 3 days of CodeRage, and my blog. So again, the idea about this session is to have a look at where the product is and where the product is going. And rather than doing that in an abstract way, we're going to go through features that have been added to XC7. And most of these features actually highlight the product directions. So rather than spending time on future potential ideas, it will be more integrated into what's in the product today and where the product is going and will keep going in the near future. So that's the idea. I'm not going to show demos of the XC7 technologies on purpose. First, because the 30 minutes for these sessions are not a lot, considering the amount of new features that have been added to Delphi. And the second is that over these 3 days, well, it already started, but over these 3 days, you'll get a lot of in-depth sessions covering each and every of the new technologies. So rather than having light and very limited demos of a couple, I just wait and let specific sessions get in-depth onto the features. And again, there is plenty of information over these 3 days of CodeRage. Really recommend you stay online or just get a few that are more relevant for you and then follow up with the recordings later on. So where is the product today? It's hard to tell. It was easier in the early days when it was a Windows client-server development product. Now it's really a multi-phase product. Windows client-server development is still key, and FireDAC really is what today is making the product significantly better and more powerful in that direction. But it's not Windows only. It's also multi-device development. It's also integration with devices, integration with REST and cloud services, integration with data in general, the ability to interact with the environment through mapping, through sensors, good quality in the UI in terms of styling and modern UI development. Of course, the mobile side of the product, which works alongside with the Windows side, support for new technologies, support for 64-bit, something not each and every of our customers have already migrated to, even on Windows. And so there is a lot going along. All of these features have actually been added before XC7, although some of them have been extended in the current version of the product. Before we go to the specific, I think it's important to remember how Delphi is different than other products in the same space, other development tools. First and foremost, it is component-based. That's something that's easy to take for granted, but for example, if you look at the current scenario of mobile development, not everything is component-based, and honestly, it's not even true on the Windows platform. Rapid visual development still provides a very significant saving in terms of development time and development effort. And the way we abstract the platform APIs on Windows, the same we've done throughout other platforms, Android, iOS, and Mac. So the component-based system actually helps and improves on the platform API abstraction. And great data access. These are some of the core tenets of the product. And again, the data access also works and is easier through a component-based architecture. Now, of course, a component-based architecture without a strong foundation would be good for RAD, good for prototypes, but not good for final deployment. Now, what makes Delphi different, and that's true since Delphi 1 was released, is that behind this component-based architecture, there is a very strong object-oriented architecture. There are optimized compilers. There used to be one. Now we are shipping 6 different Object Pascal compilers with RAD Studio and Delphi, at least at the enterprise level, or if you have the mobile plugin. A strong object-oriented architecture means that there are scenarios and there are cases you don't only want to use components because the application size would be tremendous and unmanageable. So you can actually at times set aside the component model a bit, leverage it only for portions of the application and create object-oriented architectures. That's something that is there, is available. There are libraries and technologies that lets you leverage a pure object-oriented foundation. And the other thing I wanted to point out is that the same exact model, the same architecture that most of you have used in the VCL Windows world, the same approach, the same architecture has been extended to the FireMonkey and multi-device development world. So the approach is the same, the overall model is the same. Of course, details vary quite a bit. So if this is the common foundation, there are clearly 2 sides of the product. One is the easy migration and the easy embracing of mobile development. And mobile development is relevant today. It's not something for tomorrow. But the advantage that Delphi provides, you can take a lot of your code with you. And if not the code line by line, at least all of the concept, all of the approaches that you've been using in the product. It is the same development model. It is the same core class library. It is the same programming language. It is the same development tool. The goal of our multi-platform development is really single code base. That's a bold proposition, but as you've seen over the last few years, we've been able to deliver on a single code base scenario. And actually Windows XE7 adds even more to this idea with the multi-device designer. Other core features are the ability to do full prototypes with live data at design time, but then scale those prototypes into production without having to throw them away. Support for a lot of data, remoting data technologies, from backend as a service providers to our own enterprise application platform, REST clients, cloud support. So it's a complete mobile development tool that goes beyond a single platform, embracing iOS and Android, and even lets you use the same foundation, the same code, and target also desktop platforms like Mac and Windows. On the other side, Delphi still is and remains a core Windows development with the best Windows class library available today, which is the VCL library. The desktop platform, if you are focused on Windows only, is a tremendous asset with a huge ecosystem of third-party components. And this is something that's here to stay. It's not going away. It's a great technology for Windows 8. It will be a great technology for Windows 10 development. Not only you can keep your focus on Windows development, but you can leverage the mobile side of the product to do integration of desktop and mobile technologies, and to do integration of desktop and Internet of Things technology through Bluetooth or through mobile conduits. There is one specific technology, which we call AppTethering, that lets you, in a very simple way, bridge desktop and mobile application and have them work together. This is, again, something quite unique in the development scenario, and something a lot of our customers are embracing, really enjoying using. So let's look at XE7 specifically. From very high and above, the focus is multiple, is focus on keep pushing the multi-device development scenario, pushing on connectivity, and again, that's something that goes beyond mobile and even embraces Windows. Improve on code performance, not just with our compilers, but with a new parallel programming library, adding a new middle tier solution, and pushing and increasing the product quality. These are some of the tenets of this product today. Now, let's get into some more specifics, starting with the Windows side. There are some new language extensions, as I was mentioning, parallel library, improvements in various areas, even some new VCL components. So this is the summary of some of the core features that a VCL developer could benefit by upgrading to XC7. There is more than this, but this is certainly a list of the core features. So let us go into this a little bit more in detail. New in the Object Pascal language is the support for some improvement in the support for dynamic arrays. This is actually a very nice, even if small, feature. You can now concatenate dynamic arrays using just the plus sign, and also other RTL functions have been extended to cover dynamic arrays. It's could be seen like as just a simple small syntactic sugar, but actually it explains a bit more on the features that are being pushed in terms of the product. Dynamic arrays are the way to go for array and flexible data structures like this. There is a session afterwards when I'm actually going to get into some more details, and you might have already seen information about this feature. The threading library, the parallel library, which is again is subject to quite a few sessions, is relevant, and it basically has two sides. One is performance driven, so the ability to change your traditional for loops and turn them into parallel for loops to take advantage of multi-core CPUs. And the other is in terms of asynchronous operations and more flexible use of background threads through the use of tasks and features. These are great technologies that you can leverage to simplify your multi-threaded applications and also take fully advantage of the actual CPU and its power without having to bother too much at the low level, or even manage directly and manually manage threads and scheduling threads or anything like that. You just create tasks, and these tasks can be executed in an optimized fashion by the scheduler. There are new VCL specific components. Again, I'm going to have a session on VCL later on, and I'm going to cover some of this in details. In XC6, we added a taskbar button component that has task progress bar, custom previews, overlay icons, and quite a few features. Now, the important thing is this is really a VCL specific component that lets you better integrate with recent version of Windows, Windows 7, Windows 8, and well, in the future, Windows 10. Similarly, if you want to handle custom items in your taskbar button, what you need to do is what you can do is use the new jump list component. You just drop these components and customize the categories. Very easy to use, very flexible, just a wrapper of some not so trivial APIs. So it's actually a nice addition. So these two components that often work together lets you fully customize the taskbar buttons for your application, like most of the professional and high quality applications do. Bluetooth on Windows is certainly a welcome addition in XC7. We offer Bluetooth support at two levels. Of course, we do have the API wrappers available for both standard Bluetooth and the Bluetooth low energy or Bluetooth LE. For the Bluetooth LE, there is a component you can drop into your applications to directly talk with devices and gadgets, although keep in mind that Bluetooth LE support is available in Windows 8 and not on older versions. at least not out of the box. Standard Bluetooth has been available for a little more time, and beside the APIs, we do have integration with AppTethering, so you can now have your mobile phone and your VCL application or FireMonkey desktop application talk over Bluetooth rather than over Wi-Fi. Again, as I mentioned earlier, AppTethering can really bring a lot of new life and new capabilities to existing applications by doing mobile tethering. There are countless examples. One that was mentioned to us by a customer who's building software for doctors is actually quite nice. These doctors have this VCL application where they store all of the information about their patients. But what happens is that they need to take pictures of, for example, a bruise or something of the patient, and then they currently using a very manual and cumbersome way to move those pictures from their mobile phones or the devices used to take the pictures to the applications. Now with AppTethering, they don't even have to write the code, because we actually ship a demo that does exactly that. You take a picture with the phone and send it directly into an image sitting into your VCL application. Could be a DB image, so automatically the information is stored into the database. Remote control and data exchange are the two facets of AppTethering. And the other thing that's great is there is automatic discovery. So you don't need a server, you don't need a configuration, you don't need to set an IP address. It can actually pick up things automatically, although there's been some extensions to XE6, from XE6 to XE7 to fine-tune the IP-based discovery if needed. So AppTethering is absolutely a great feature that lets you modernize your application without throwing away the investment on Windows desktop, which won't make sense. I mean, it won't make sense for the doctor to move his patient processing application to his phone, because that would be a little tricky to handle. But it makes sense to have interaction from the phone to the actual application running on his computer. There are other runtime library improvements in XE7. OmniXML support in TXML document has been added. The most relevant goal, of course, is for multi-device. On Windows, you can still rely on Microsoft XML, but if you want to have a single model throughout platforms, OmniXML is actually quite a fast engine. You can pick OmniXML as a default, even for SOAP processing, or change another standard default through some better configuration than we had in the past. There's another unit, again, showing some of our directions. There is a system.net encoding unit that puts together features that were available either in the SOAP subsystem, in the Indy library, or in other system libraries, but they were somehow spread around. Now we are trying really to build a rather complete set of RTL system units that cover all of the foundations for your development effort. And all of this, of course, in a cross-platform and multi-platform fashion. Database access, of course, is king in Delphi, has always been from day one. Local and client-server access can be done with multiple technologies, but our primary technology today and where all of the new development is happening is in FireDAC. FireDAC is a marvelous, extremely powerful, very flexible, universal data access layer. And what's nice about FireDAC is it really can put a lot of fun back into database development. It solves a lot of issues for you, so there's less code you have to write. It has some tremendous power, including the ability to do in-memory joins of tables that come from different data sources. That's an absolutely terrific feature among the thousands of other terrific features that FireDAC has. And again, there are sessions to go in depth into FireDAC and what's new in FireDAC. In mentioning local development, notice that there is one significant new feature that's part of XE7, which is the availability of a free deployment for IB Lite, the light version of interface, which hasn't got much in terms of being light. It's actually a full-blown interface database that you can ship, binary compatible with GTB files. It only has a size restriction, which would probably be good for most local database applications. And it lacks encryption, something you can easily add on top of it without changing anything in your code, just by buying, in this case, a distribution license for the encrypted databases. So IB Lite was already available on iOS and Android, is now also available on Windows and Mac. And yes, BDE, for the first time ever since Delphi 1, is not part of the shipping version of XC7, although it's a separate download, so you can still get it. It's kind of the last call. If you still have anything BDE related, please get rid of it as soon as possible. We won't really hold it around for much longer. One thing I wanted to mention you might have missed in XC6 is one significant evolution and at the db.pass unit at the TDataSet, and that's for all datasets, not just FireDAC or not just something specific library. It is the way persistent fields can be merged with dynamic fields. So you can have now persistent calculated fields without creating all fields persistent. That means if you change dynamically the query to add more fields, everything will work smoothly. And similarly, you can also create the common fields as persistent fields, but then add further fields to a dynamic query, and those new fields would just show up. To have the same effect before was really quite complex. Now there are field options with auto creation, position, and other features that are really extremely powerful. So for database developers, and I guess most of you are, this is really an astonishing new feature that's been added to the TDataSet class. Again, FireDAC is our data access cornerstone. High performance, fun to use, universal data access. Everything is in source code, no DLLs to deploy, no DLLs to distribute. You have the source code for everything to browse and navigate through. And that adds a lot to the power and usability of this set of components. There are some new specific features in FireDAC, namely blob streaming and file stream support for Microsoft SQL Server. And another very significant feature is this new batch move component that has a full architecture of readers and writers that lets you write and read data and metadata between databases. So that's, for example, a great technology to migrate your old leftover Paradox files to Interbase, but you can actually also migrate from SQL Server to Oracle and vice versa, and migrate data between different vendors, between different databases. Notice there is also a script. It's called refine. Refine is actually a regular expression search and replace engine, and there are a few scripts specifically for migrating the BDE components, not the data, but the actual components of your applications to the equivalent FireDAC components. So that's the more standard, traditional, if you want to say, VCL Windows side of the product, although some of the features I've mentioned actually do apply to FireMonkey as well, from the parallel library to all of the new features in FireDAC. There are specific XC7 features that are focused on multi-device, though, that is certainly worth mentioning. And here is, again, kind of the summary, although we have seen the details of a couple of this. First of all, just in case you need another reminder, let me underline that mobile is everywhere. Android today is the most used operating system in the world. No question asked, by far. You cannot ignore mobile. You cannot create a development scenario and create applications that just focus on Windows only and completely ignore the mobile side of the world. Again, it's not that you have to move everything to mobile, but there are certainly a lot of features that make sense on mobile, and interaction between the two sides, either through a server or direct AppTethering, is also quite critical. And in this mobile world, Delphi has a unique position along with C++ Builder, of course, and App Method. It is being multi-device and true native. So you don't have to give up the power of the compiler and direct interaction with any platform API to be multi-device. So compared to the single device native solutions that lets you force you to rewrite the code every time, we have a multi-device solution that's not scripted, that is not like 100 miles away from your phone hardware like some of the other solutions are. So multi-device and true native is today still a pretty unique proposition that Delphi offers in the mobile world. And just to underline, it's more or less like Windows and VCL, where you have APIs and your code has to be written every time for each different API, unless you use a component layer that does two things. Not only wraps the API for a single platform, making it easier to write on that platform, but also wraps the differences between the platforms. So the same component, either visual or database access or REST API or anything else, file system access, everything is abstracted through classes and components. So in most cases, you don't have to worry about the platform and just write the code. Still, we do offer native API access. And for example, on the Android side, we just added a new tool that lets you create the Object Pascal interfaces for Java libraries. And also the IDE provides a flexible and simple way to add extra Java libraries to distribute with your Delphi Android application. So hooking to the APIs is important and it is available through our tools, but using components is what can really make your code easier to write, faster to write, and cross-platforms. What's new specifically in XC7 is what we've collectively called FireUI, and it's actually a set of technologies. It's a new multi-device designer that takes advantage of our streaming and differential streaming engines, so you can have different views of the same form and visually create the differences by moving components, by setting new properties, even adding event handlers on one specific platform differently from other platforms. And what happens is that rather than having a full copy of that visual object, you only have the differences. And so it becomes very flexible when you're making any change at the higher level, at the master level, those changes will be reflected back to all views unless you made a specific local change. It's the same technology some of you might have used in terms of visual form inheritance, but in this scenario it's much easier because you have a single form class that has multiple views depending on the platform, and even multiple views on the same platform depending on the screen real estate and form sizes. Now, in some scenarios, you don't even need to go to that level because we are starting introducing adaptive components like the multi-view that can actually adapt itself to the target, not just operating system, because that's something we already covered with styling, but to the screen estate. So for example, you can have a drawer that becomes a full list depending on the device orientation and the device resolution and size. Also, we've added the concept of platform awareness through behavioral services. So for example, when you need to determine the position of a tab in a tab control, rather than forcing it to be top or bottom, you can have a new property that's called platform, and at runtime it will pick the right position for the given platform. Again, the multi-device designer has a lot of power, the ability to modify views and to change properties and customize the styling is really significant, and I really encourage you to come to one of the next sessions that will cover the platform. There is actually a lot more in FireMonkey, from extra support for multi-monitors, multi-touch. There's a new on-touch event that supports multi-touch at the form level. project manager extensions, Android immersive mode and splash screen, and that's actually quite significant when you're using edit components on iOS. You can actually use a platform presentation rather than a style presentation. This means that at runtime on the device, the FireMonkey will just create a native edit object, a platform native object, rather than render with custom styled control as it was the only option in the past. Gadgets and wearables are on the rise. It's going to be more and more connectivity that matters, and that's certainly true for mobile, but even true for desktop world. Bluetooth LE and AppTethering support, as I've already mentioned, are extremely powerful technologies. This Bluetooth LE component works on most platforms we support. That's not true for Bluetooth because there are some platform limitations, but this is a very relevant direction for the product. You can today interact with gadgets either using Bluetooth or Bluetooth LE, making REST calls over HTTP, integrated with custom native SDKs. We cover all of these scenarios with our technologies. Mobile data connectivity is another very significant area. Cloud support has been in the product for quite some time, and then we added in the last couple of years a REST client library, and backend as a service support. That's mostly meant for mobile, but honestly can even be leveraged on desktop. And along with our existing multi-tier SDK, which is DataSnap, in XC7 we've added a new solution called Enterprise Mobility Services. Again, will be the focus of specific sessions, but it's worth highlighting a couple of key points anyway. It's a turnkey solution compared to the DataSnap, which is an SDK, built it yourself, your solution, and it has a lot of features built into it. It has user management and authentication built into the product, ability to load modules that you write to add custom APIs. It has some very flexible technologies to hook to enterprise databases, and comes with a ready-to-use analytics console for checking users and keeping track of the REST calls. Again, the goal is to extend and expand this ready-to-use solution to make it very fast to build and deploy mobile, but why not even desktop solution with this scenario. EMS includes several different bits and pieces. It does include Interbase to go licenses, so encrypted database on desktop and mobile licenses, and an Interbase server is also part of the offer. Again, there are differences between EMS and DataSnap in terms of positioning. Both features are part of the product and will stay part of the product and will be extended in the future. Of course, I covered some of these features over the VCL side, but this from language extensions to parallel library, considering that your phone might have more cores than your current desktop. Database and FireDAC extensions, these are all features that are shared between the VCL Windows world and the multi-device FireMonkey world. Let me add a couple of final things. One is that we have done new things in the IDE. While the multi-device designer has been a huge addition and huge effort for the team to come up with this very nice piece of technology. IDE guided tours, you might not have seen those. If you go to the welcome page, there is a small click and there is a way to create interactive tutorials. We had just started exploring. Version control integration has been updated with Git support and significant updates on the Subversion support. More will be coming, but we're actually quite pleased to have done one step further compared to what we were in XC6. And last but not least, if you buy and install and register XC7 today, you can then download Castelia, which is a very nice IDE plugin, and it's currently free with XC7. It's a great solution, offers also refactorings in a smoother way, and quite a few other nice features for the editor and the IDE in general. Quality and performance have been a focus of this release, as well as the previous one, with different areas. Increase application runtime. We fixed a lot of bugs reported against previous versions, of course, not against the latest one. And also the thing I wanted to highlight is if you really have huge applications, you can use the new out of the IDE compilation setting, so that when you compile, you spawn a separate process for the compiler, and this should let you avoid out of memory issues with the IDE. A couple of notes on future directions, although again, as I mentioned, having seen what we've added also kind of explains where we're going. First, we actually did deliver a few other features after XC7 in the last couple of months, from hot fixes to free downloads. We also, Roman Kassenbaum built a lot of new versions for some of the turbo, old-timer turbo power components that are actually available and ready to use in XC7. Overall, there is a new XC7 update coming shortly, but a lot of things has been happening in terms of development and effort after XC7 shipped. In terms of real future directions, of course, we'll be monitoring very closely Windows 10 and what Microsoft focuses on, and where Microsoft pushes Windows 10. The impression we have so far is that desktop will be the focus of Windows 10, and so we are really ready with our technologies to offer one of the best development experiences for Windows 10. Cross-platform development with single source remains a key focus, of course, and we'll try to extend and expand in terms of platforms and reach and features and native integration on that platform, along with embracing connectivity and embracing Internet of Things in full, and also trying to offer options and solutions. There are already some available in targeting single board computers, from the Arduino-like boards or Raspberry Pi-like boards. Expand enterprise mobility services and DataSnap beyond Windows with other server platforms. That's another feature we are trying to focus on during the next year. And enhance developer productivity in the IDE. That's an area where Delphi used to shine. We know we fell a little behind compared to other tools. We're going to have a renewed focus on developer productivity in the IDE. Delphi has a great present and a bright future. Product is doing great, and the company is investing in research and development to push the product even more. You might have noticed more books have been released this year than of the last several years combined. There are new components coming from FireMonkey and VCL. The recognition and the visibility of the product is actually improving significantly, and that's despite all doomsayer, it's not a dead product, quite the opposite. Delphi offers you a lot of power for you to leverage and extend with great libraries from us and from third-party component vendors, and even open source third-party libraries that are doing a lot. So if you still don't have XC7, buy it, or at least try it today. With the trial comes the free download of the Hodges' latest book. If you buy XC7 Enterprise, there are a couple of active offers. You can get free rapid SQL, and also you can pay only the upgrade price, even if you're coming from some rather old versions of the product. Plus, there is a free bonus pack with a lot of freebies from my PDF of the current draft of my book to MIDA Converter, Premium Styles, Castelia, as I mentioned, and FastCube for VCL. So if there is any question, I'm here for a few more minutes to ask anything you have. And if not, I recommend you keep following CodeRage because there will be lots of great sessions delving into the technologies that I just mentioned in this keynote. Thanks. Bye.
How about a light version of the IDE in FireMonkey for cross-platform development?
Well, rebuilding the IDE in FireMonkey would be a significant effort. It's not that completely inconceivable, but unless you want to have an IDE that has 10% of the features, it might take some time to get that working. And it's not just the IDE, it would have to be IDE and compilers and all of the various assets that we ship along with the IDE.
What sort of improvements have been in the help system?
Mostly the improvement is around content. We have tried to streamline the content development so that we have more general tutorials and more APIs covered, although it is difficult because we tend to keep pushing and adding features up to the last minute when the doc writers don't have any more time to document those features. So we still have to improve the process. The other area that we are going to work on is actually the help engine itself, because the one we are using is really not in a great shape. So in either the next or the following version, we'll have a different help engine or help viewer engine.
Okay. What format are the books in? I'm not sure if they're referring to the bonus books we're providing, I'm guessing, or the other books that are being published about Delphi.
I think the bonus books are PDF books. The other books being published are in various formats. I know Daniele Teti's book is available in print, and so is Nick Hodges' book. And again, also it's available on PDF. My book is currently PDF only because it's not finished. When it will be done early next year, I'll get it in print as well. And I know there are a couple of other books coming or being completed for various areas of the product.
Yep. I have print copies of both Daniel's and Nick's books at home. The guided tours for the IDE, where can you find those?
Oh, just open the welcome page, and there's a very small link in the page that is a showcase for a guided tour. You click on it, and it starts popping up like balloon help that drives you, and you're forced to do specific steps. So it's a way to teach, okay, open this dialog, fill this form, click this button, and you have to follow the steps to complete the sequence. The one that's in the product is guide to the multi-device designer.
And are there more guided tours coming?
Hopefully, yes. The engine is there. It's a JavaScript, HTML/JavaScript engine that lets you hook to the IDE. It's not documented, but that's something we're looking forward, along with providing some tools. If you have specific interests or specific ideas, we are very interested in getting help or getting external people to create extra tours.
Okay. Here's a question about why we have a 6-month release cycle versus a longer, more drawn-out release cycle. You want to mention why we do that every 6 months release, roughly?
Yeah, sure. That's quite straightforward. We probably, if we consider what's happening, for example, on iOS, we should probably need to have a 3-month release cycle because we released the product 2 weeks before Apple released a new update software that would bitch with our linker. Now we have currently a fix for that linker issue, and Apple announces new requirements starting early next year. So close to our next release cycle somehow for App Store submission. So it's very difficult to get to a year release cycle when the players in the field, like the platform vendors, change the rules or add new compulsory requirements at 2-3 months distance one from the other. So for the mobile side of the product, keeping this release cycle is really it's something we cannot go away from.
Android Intel support, is that something we could expect in the next year?
Android Intel support can be tackled by different perspectives. One that might end up being good enough, according to our current experiment, is via the libhoudini library that ships with all of the new Android Intel devices. We have had partial success with FireMonkey applications running on that library, and it's something we are actively investigating, actually along with Intel. And we are also looking for the opportunity of building a native compiler toolchain targeting the Android Intel platform. It's still a rather small percentage of devices. Again, we want to make sure that FireMonkey applications run on those. We might also want to consider optimizing them on the platform by providing a native toolchain.
Okay, that's good. How do you access IB Lite in the VCL?
Oh, it's just a driver. You can, for example, if you're using FireDAC, there is one specific driver for IB Lite compared to the one for Interbase. And that driver will basically hook in the local DLL and the other files that you have to distribute to along with the application. You can also, of course, use IB Lite from VB Express and from IBX and from other components.
Does the license restrict using XC7 to create a compiler/IDE?
The license restricts XC7 from creating a competing tool with XC7 itself. Yes, that's a specific requirement because honestly, if you just take our runtime library, you can take FireMonkey because the FireMonkey deployment is something you can do. You can deploy runtime packages on most platforms. So if you take all of our packages and just create a very light development tools that does, for example, form streaming and attach some scripting via RTTI, then you can probably build a competing tool in a matter of a rather limited amount of time. And we don't think that would be fair from a competitor to do. There are other reasons why we want to potentially limit the use of our product for other types of competitors. Now, if you have any doubt, just feel free to send me email. I'll get in touch with legal. We are more than happy to provide a specific written authorization for you to keep going and working on your product as much as we are okay. We don't feel that is threatening our core assets.
Okay.
And also, actually, even if we didn't have that written, the intellectual property protection and the patents we have would probably give us enough room to complain and beat you anyway. So spelling that out doesn't really make a big difference from a different scenario.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually noticed we're actually going over time a little bit here. We're just looking at the schedule. We have the next session is 34 minutes long, so we do have a little time to we'll keep going. A few more questions here, and then we'll start our next session in a little bit. What about Windows Store support in Windows 10, since Microsoft is opening that up?
Oh, yeah, we are actually monitoring that very, very closely. I was personally very happy about that. We still don't know the details, and we are trying to track those with Microsoft. What is my personal hope is that they will allow for binary applications directly distributed via the store. For example, that's exactly what Mac is doing with the Mac, what Apple is doing with the Mac Store. And at that point, we certainly want to be sure that Delphi compiled binary applications will work smoothly. Right now, we don't have any issue with 64-bit apps. We might have issues with the 32-bit counterpart because of the lack of the safe exception handling requirement that Microsoft imposes. But that's something that we can potentially work on if this becomes a differentiator for having or not having an application on the store. Again, could be very interesting. We are talking with Microsoft to figure out the exact technical details.
How do you use IB Lite on Windows? Do you have to use PA Server to test on the development machine?
That's something I haven't personally done, but I don't think it's actually a significant effort. I mean, IB Lite is just a DLL that you load through an interface, again, using some specific components or drivers.
Are we going to see FireMonkey and VCL in the same applications to help migration of older applications?
That's something that could be interesting, and I'd personally like to have. It is slightly more difficult than it seems at first sight. I know that there are tools that let you just put together units with the two libraries and just compile everything together. What ends up is you end up with two message loops in Windows, which is not exactly ideal, and the two message loops can actually beat each other a little bit. So honestly, just stitching together the two sides somehow works, but it's not good quality and it's not foolproof. There are specific issues and errors. Now, changing the way the message loops works is something possible, but it's not a trivial issue. And of course, if we do it, we have to make sure that we're not breaking a few million VCL applications out there. So it's not a light and trivial couple of days implementation effort, but it's something that would certainly be nice to have. Right now, the best approach for combining is through DLL boundary, because that makes sure that the message handling is performed properly on either sides.
Is there an ETA for XE7 Update 1?
No, there is not an ETA, only because we are double checking the quality of the upgrade. There's nothing worse than an upgrade that breaks features that were working in the previously released version. So there is a little bit of QA that's being done to make sure that everything is smooth. So when it's done, when it's ready, and when we don't have any more open issues, we are going to release it.
Where's the option for the out-of-ID compiler?
Well, I should look for it. I don't have the ID in front of myself, but if you go to project compilation, I think that's in the area. I can certainly look that up and put in the answer in that question in a few minutes.
Yeah, I remember seeing it. I just can't recall exactly what the location is.